This goes beyond just a murder. Beyond everything I believe.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for Under the Banner of Heaven. This is episode 5, and we've got one more episode to go right after this, and this show is just going for it. I have my co-host here, Lucas. What's going on, brother?
This is episode 5?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Oh God. Okay. I'm gonna need you to. I'm gonna need you.
Are we good? Are we good? Are we good? Do I need to do this?
Oh goodness. Hey, look. I am just going to hope I watched episode 5 and not episode 6. So. Wow. Okay. I
All right. So,
okay.
Episode 5. Oh gosh, you just threw me all the way off.
I can't remember. I know it's a total of 7 episodes. I can't remember. You threw me off, but I think I watched 5. Shit.
Okay, so we're gonna go from this point here. So he finally gets context as to what is really going on. He gets understanding of what Dan did and what he was trying to do with his family. We found out with Ron that all the lies that were on the back fray that he didn't know. We didn't know how deep it went. That yes, he was abusing his wife. Yes, his wife threatened him with the knife point because she didn't know what he was going to be capable of because him and Dan got excommunicated. On top of all that, Pyre's family went to the bishop's house, unbeknownst to him, and in an effort to kind of reel him back in. But like this show excels at is, I mean, they do so much without any action at all. It's about the characters. It's about the acting. It's about where and how things went or how things could go completely awry very quickly. And this show always excels at that. And I'm just in awe of what they did with this episode. But again, some of those things, hopefully that jogs some of Lucas's memory as we go and dissect this episode. So Lucas.
Hey, look. This is the funniest. You know what? This is the funniest. This is the funniest thing in the world to me right now. Cause
Are you okay?
I am. Okay. So,
all right.
I'll say this. I am here for moral support. As my brother talks through episode 5, because I watched episode 6, so I can't talk about it. Oh goodness! You know what?
All right.
I was wondering why I was so. I said, "Wait, did I miss something? Because this is odd." Oh goodness!
All right.
Oh, this is funny. This is funny.
So
come on, let's talk about it. Now you have to talk to me like the audience also and explain to me what happened this episode. Maybe I'm wrong and maybe it jogs some of my memory, but I don't want to say anything that could have happened the next episode. So how did this one begin, Sam? Here's your audience today.
Okay. So this episode started off with them at the police station because Samuel was basically spewing a lot of different conjecture that he did this, he murdered Brenda, he did all these different things. And they got the report of the blood that was on Samuel's body. It was on his shirt, on his clothes, that it was just squirrel blood. That he didn't do anything. And on top of that he didn't give any mention to the actual list, even though he was saying that he did all these things. And then they realized, oh, okay, no, there's something else going on. Lo and behold, the last episode, we thought that possibly the cop, the rookie cop, that he found somebody and he was trying to implicate Pyre, but no, he actually found the person they needed to find that was actually on the initial list, because he would be the person that would give the gateway to, okay, what did Ron do? And who was working with Ron? Who are, I think it was the group of the prophets, or the prophet group. And so from what the rookie did, they were able to kind of like follow along down the tracks, because the bishop was getting him out of there anyway. Not only did the bishop go and take his family, but he got all the other brothers out. But before he got all the brothers out, he asked Robert, what do you know about this background? And then that's when Robert was like, well, no, there's a lot more to this story that you don't know. And so then they went to, like I said, the person that was the bishop, the original bishop, and talked to him and his wife about what was going on and what happened. And he basically let them know, look, there is a 15-month-old that died and a wife that died in her home. Who of this religion that you're actually protecting? Because there's two different types, and you have to figure out what side of the line of this is. And then they started to proceed to talk about what happened with Ron. Not only a little bit of the dirt of what Dan did, but specifically what Ron did. That Ron was an abuser, that he did threaten his family, that his wife did kick him out because of certain things that he was doing. And then all for him to get excommunicated later on. Like, it was just a series of different events, but all throughout it, like, Pyre's partner was like, you knew this man was abusive. You knew this man was not where he needed to be stably. And you told her the best thing she should do is just fall in line, like everything is okay. And you didn't think there was going to be ramifications to it. And it was this back and forth that would just continue to happen. One of the things I'll say about that is it was just great acting. It was a lot of back and forth, like mirroring. You know how like you're talking with somebody and then the camera's focused here and then it's focused back. They did that with a lot of different conversations throughout this. It wasn't just in the jail cell. They had it with the bishop, the original bishop, and then they had it with the person that was working with Dan and Ron. I can't remember if his name was Steven. I can't remember his name, but they got to his house and he was trying to fake it till he made it with his wife, because his wife she is oblivious to everything that was going on, but he was like, I ain't trying to ruin a bad thing, but look, I kind of know something about Ron. I kind of know something about Dan, but I just don't want you to say anything. They were like, look, so you withheld information. You didn't tell anybody. We should lock your tail up in front of your wife. And she's like, no, please don't do that. I'll go and I'll tell you exactly where the farm is, because the farm, that's where all this could be. And so he was like, I just asked him one thing. Please give me a bulletproof vest because I don't want to die. Wow. And so him, and then they needed Alan because Alan knew possibly where the grounds were. And so they needed him and Alan to, drive them out to the location where Ron possibly was going to be at. But yeah, I think that the biggest thing about the show, again, is they continuously unravel the storyline. You had talked about this before, Lucas, where how they would go into the past and talk about
the prophet John Smith, and basically give you the past of Mormonism and relate it to now to show you the difference between possibly the fundamentalist Mormons versus the more modern day Mormons, and how I'm going to say how the way religion morphs into something else over time. That's what this show does a great job of. But speaking of this scene here, do you believe, because now I am the interviewer here, because it is clear that I watched episode 6. Do you believe here that we get a resemblance of the psyche of Ron throughout the series? Is this where you get the clear picture of exactly how his mind works? Because at this whole time we've been portraying him more as the innocent brother.
Mm-hmm.
Is this in this episode? Does it depict him as he's not necessarily innocent? He may have been corrupted some, but he had his own demons that he was hiding.
I think that it all stems from the dad.
Okay.
It all stems from the dad's overexposure to mold his family how he wanted, but at the same time keep power. And he put Dan in too much power, and he kept Ron at this place of feeling like he was less than. And I think it led to all the things that his dad was doing to his family, he started doing to his own family, even though he didn't realize it was something that he shouldn't do, because he seemed like the same brother, but really no, like he was battling everything. Like he was abusing his family. He was conforming. He was believing his own thing. Matter of fact, I think that the guy Steven said that Ron believed in something different. He was hearing not from the Almighty, he was hearing from his own God. And that brought to the stage where he decided to go back to his own home. And he visited his mom. He took out his belt, started whipping himself, and started whipping in the counter. And his mom said, no, you're still the leader of this family. He proceeds to go up to his dad's desk. His dad's not feeling very well, can barely get out of bed. He was like, I need some water. And Ron was like, you know what? I've seen a lot of terrible things. And you just said, we don't need no hospitals. We don't need no doctors. He'll be all right. I watched one of my brothers die in front of me. You said he was going to be all right, but he wasn't. And he was like, how about you pray? And he poured out the water and basically let his dad die, presumably. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like all the different things put him down this roller coaster path. And so it was like all the crosshairs really did come to a head in this episode. Like you really get to see, like even Brenda was seeing like what was happening to Ron's wife. And she was like, are you getting abused? Can you do something about it? Can I help you? This is the messed up part. The messed up part was really what Dan was trying to do with his family. Dan told his wife, no, this is outside the stage. Dan was found by his wife in his daughter's room. And his wife looked, he was like, what is going on? And he was like, well, look, I've found that I've got a lot of sexual desires that need to be fulfilled by God. And God has called you to be, what did he say? How did he refer to it as? A sister wife. So your daughter is going to be my next wife, and we're going to preserve the bloodlines. And she was like disgusted. She was like, I can't do this. But then he was like, well, don't you know you cannot, submit to your husband. It is only crossed out by death. And she quoted that back. And I thought that the daughters were going to just go along with it, but they tried to get out. And the mom caught him, but she gave him a screwdriver to get out. Both the daughters dipped. And she to distract him, she had sex with him just to try to make sure her daughters got out. The crazy thing is the daughters went to the bishop, let the bishop know what was going on with that situation too. And that was when they excommunicated Dan. But they don't know where the daughters went. They put them into a nice home, but they have no idea where the daughters went.
So this is their way of protecting the children.
Right.
Is by moving them away. Which makes sense in that type of situation. Because it sounds like it plays back into Dan's feelings in episode 4 when he went to the other group of Mormons about polygamy and that their polygamy still existed to this day, but he morphed it into something completely different. He morphed it in a way where he thought his wife would go along with it. In a sick, twisted way of saying, my daughters will be your sister wife.
That's sick, bro. That's so sick. And honestly, now that I'm looking at this, when I look at all the different brothers, I don't think any one of them believe in one specific thing. I feel like every single one of them are believing their own narrative. They're choosing to believe a certain path, one way or another. And like you said, with the prophet Joseph, and when he made that call, his wife, and they brought it up. I think it was Alan that brought it up. he was talking about how, this is the book of the prophets, or the prophets, or so to speak. I can't remember the name of the group, but he was like, there's no prophets, there is one. And I'm gonna tell you, this is how this started. And he basically went down the path of like, okay, the wife didn't abide by what he was trying to do, and she left him, and he went into hiding. And essentially from that stage, she went and was trying to look for him, and she trusted a little boy to go, I think it was her son, to give it to the dad. And instead somebody intercepted it, somebody that was going to take Prophet Joseph's line and conform it to what he felt was right by getting him locked up. And he changed the verbiage and said that, and the wife didn't write this, but he wrote for the wife, like, well, you need to go and turn yourself in, because that's what God abides for you to do. That's what God wants. So, and he got slaughtered. Everybody around got slaughtered except for his homeboys. Wife survived, but really it was supposed to be Joseph's son that was supposed to succeed him, but instead somebody else completely took the reins, and that was the initial person. Remember the one that was getting all the guns gathered, and him. So he's the one that set all that in motion.
So it almost sets up the overall what they perceive here is the overall corruption of religion,
right?
From going from a sense of saying the prophets, which is actually the Mormon. What am I trying to say this word properly? It's the Laffertys, what they believe,
right?
Under their Mormonism is the multiple prophets,
right?
Exactly. Versus what is taught to them initially, which was there's one prophet.
Yeah.
But here you see in that scene where the manipulation takes place is the manipulation of religion. It's and I guess it's a good thing to show, because that's not just something that happens in the Mormon religion. That's something that happens in every form of religion where things get crossed and people want you to conform to what more they believe. So instead of taking their direct word of what was told, what they do is change it to fit more of their need.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense, because that's exactly what they did was when they were showing that flashback of Prophet Joseph, they were at the same time seamlessly doing Ron at the same time. And I was kind of like, what is this parallel that's happening? But then I was like, when I thought about it, like, oh, from the inception to where he's at, now this makes a lot more sense, because he's conforming to a lot of different things and he's switching sides to meet his psychological needs. Like this is what makes sense to him. This is what he needs to survive. This is what he wants. This is what he's trying to do to break the fold from his dad. This is what he's trying to do to convert for Dan. This is what he's trying to do to keep his status and his what everybody looks and perceives him to be. Because at the moment that they excommunicated him, it was very different for Dan than it was for Ron. So it's just at this point now, I don't know what these men are gonna look like by the time we get to present day.
As those two brothers are excommunicated, and this is a story I'm assuming being told by Alan, or this just something of Pyre's knowledge of the situation.
So it was the bishop that was talking about how Dan got excommunicated, and then the guy Stephen that they found from the bishop talked about how Dan got excommunicated and what was the process behind how that all folded out. So it was a couple different people that were telling the story.
So do you think with the excommunication of his two brothers, do we get any idea of a clear a mindset for Alan? Because that's still, at this point, he is still the one who they kind of mostly believe is responsible for these killings. Do we get a clear mindset from Alan in this episode of not just his thoughts on his brothers, but necessarily his thoughts on Brenda and the baby and what could have possibly led to them being murdered?
So the interesting thing is when he presented to him about the prophets, Alan knew exactly what that was. And that's when he went into the story. But he didn't he didn't have like an emotional reaction. And matter of fact, when he was leading them to the farm, to which nobody was there, he said something that was weird. He said, "My brothers couldn't have done this. It wasn't my brothers. They couldn't have done this." And I don't know if he really believes that or he was telling himself that. I feel like Alan, for the first time, even though he wasn't expressing an emotional reaction, I feel like he was trying to convince himself of something. Because it wasn't, I don't think he said that for them. I don't think he said that for their sake. I think he said that for his own. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where that story thread goes. And the weird thing is, I don't understand what the wife's trying to do. When the wife went over to the bishop's house with the daughters, it was kind of like she was just so happy. And I think Pyre said to his partner, he's like, no, the partner asked him, you know, what's the game here? Why did the bishop do that? Is he trying to get you to fall in line? He said, yeah. But he said, partly also, my wife probably feels more comfortable there so that she doesn't look as though she's broken bad, so to speak, or been put out of presentation because of my actions.
So in other words, we're seeing the pressure being laid on Pyre along with simultaneously the pressure being laid off of the brothers. And what they're doing, even though these are two completely different time periods, we actually see how it's still relating to current day and how it's affecting Pyre.
Yep. And it's really disintegrating his perspective on a lot of, because even the people that were respected, even in this episode, that were less responsible, they still withheld information at the expense of somebody else's death. They still withheld information for the good of the church, so to speak. But really, it was more so not to get their hands involved. And it's a lot of deception. It's a lot of lies. And I think that even when he was talking to Samuel, he was like, you claim you're so religious. You claim you all this. And you claim you're not sinning, but you are lying consistently. How can you justify being what you're supposedly saying you are? And you're lying this much.
Because at that point, he's going against their religion, which is they must always tell the truth.
Right.
So then you cannot be a faithful person if you're lying, and that line goes to either protecting yourself or protecting your brothers. Either way, it's not something that can be forgiven.
Right. So now I don't know what Samuel's angle is, why Samuel would choose to say he did it. But I don't know. At this point now, Wyatt Russell's character has gone off the hinges. I mean, Sam Worthington's doing a good job, but I think that Dan as a character is he's almost like a virus. Like the more you're connected to him, the more you're pulled into anything happening, essentially.
Because it comes across as Dan having just the charisma to, unfortunately, they say the scariest people is people who have the charisma to have other people follow them. And that's what it perceives here with Dan, is that he has the charisma to make people follow him.
Yeah.
And he has the power of manipulation, and it works whenever he needs it to work. But then in this episode, you see where it did not work with his wife.
Right.
So the manipulation mainly falls on the brothers, and it's because of their religious upbringing.
Right.
Because again, most of these women, well, Brenda especially, is a Mormon, but she's not raised the same way that they are.
Right.
So you're seeing people who possibly were, or even otherwise, that were possibly introduced to a different form of Mormonism. So when you get into this family with this completely fundamentally different belief system under the same religion as you, and one of the key things is always going to be that you abide by and support your husband. So it puts them in a weird situation where someone like a person like Dan could thrive in.
Yeah.
Because it's enough self-doubt unto yourself. And this is someone, Dan has never truly shown doubt about anything. True.
It's interesting though, because I think back to the original wife of Prophet Joseph. It's almost like a ripple effect. Like with specifically the wives of this family, as much as you thinking, they just fall in line, like, no, none of them really did. I mean, there maybe was one, I think Samuel's wife, but I think she was just more so brainwashed. It wasn't even so much that was she felt like was right. She was sitting there talking down to her own children. She was saying her own children were like demonic and weren't doing this. And I was like, I don't even know if she believes this. But it felt like as far as the way that the dad put in them what to believe, it almost goes down to some fundamental mishap that happened. It started with the initial wife and husband situation with the original prophet. It's almost uncanny that how much she models Brenda, how much she models Ron's wife, how much she models Dan's wife. And I mean, I think all of them, all the different wives were ready and all to do whatever the husbands wanted to do until they started to go left, until they started to do stuff that were outside of what their actual beliefs are and what they want it to be.
Do you believe that it's the conflict between your personal beliefs and possibly what your religion is teaching you?
It's hard. I mean, as far as with, I mean, I don't
as it pertains to the wives, because again, we get the key sense that, you know, and especially with Brenda, that she was raised a different form of Mormon.
Yeah.
But we clearly see the Laffertys believe in a more fundamental form of Mormonism, and then the women having to conform to it. But if you're coming from a situation where you're not accustomed to that, like, your personal beliefs will always pop up and cause an issue. Like, do you believe in this episode we get to see the cracks in the wives and the conflicts of what their personal beliefs are versus what the Lafferty's religious beliefs are?
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, well, it's weird because it's not just like the last episode, you know, Dan said to his wife, yeah, I want to have another wife because that's what God told me we should do. And she won't with it, but I mean, it didn't escalate like it did with this one. Like, he went from one extreme to a whole different extreme. And yeah, because even when she was in the car, she kind of was like praying with him and kind of like trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
But when it crossed this line, it's a question of, are you hearing from God or are you hearing from you? And I think that is God, where these wives are.
Is that God's voice speaking or your desire speaking?
Right. And I think that that's where every single one of these wives are questioning. I mean, it's I don't know, man. Like, the route that this is going, man, I don't know. They might end up in more bloodshed than just Brenda and the baby.
Oh,
bro.
Don't worry about it. When I tell you episode 6, I can't say much about 5, but I know. Again, but the story here, it's moving closer and closer to the conclusion because, again, knowing at least parts and elements of the book, this is the progression of everything. This is how we get to Pyre really solving this murder,
right,
and finding out what brothers are involved in everything. So that's the great part of it all.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see where this is gonna go, because I have absolutely no idea, and I did not read up on it. I just know that your boy Andrew is knocking it out of the park. I feel bad for Andrew, honestly. Like, I feel bad because I feel like every episode he's just getting mentally destroyed. Like the things that he's doing with his small mannerisms, the emotions that you can feel off the screen. Because it's not like this is just a one movie thing. Like, this is every single episode, and he's digging in a lot, man.
You get to slowly see him break, and that's when you know. Well, that's when you can tell an actor has really dove into the part. Is because you need to see him slowly break, because that's what's happening as Pyre is going through this investigation.
Yeah,
it's leading him to question his own religious beliefs.
Right. Yeah,
and if he's aligned with the right form of Mormonism, or maybe if he's even a Mormon.
Right. Yeah, like, I can definitely see him questioning what am I? Like who is shepherding me? Like who am I? Who can I trust to protect my family, to protect my soul, to help guide me down a good path? Because at this point, everybody that he's connected to now that he's seen from just this one case, I don't know after this case that he can just go back to how it was. I don't. And matter of fact, if something terrible happens to his mom, he's done. Like he's done with the whole thing. Because I think the one thing that he's holding on to is his relationship with his mom. Maybe there was some really big foundations that were laid because of her, and her dad or his dad. But if something happens to her, I think he's done. I think that's it. I think that'll be the straw that broke the camel's back, to be honest.
So do we get any conclusion to Ron, Diana, and his kids by the end of this episode?
So they get to the house where the farm is, and we know for a fact that Ron visited the mom and dad. He probably killed the dad, but he went to his house first, and Ron saw his daughter. I think she was cutting off the religious symbols on his garment, and he visited. Like he was so, it was sick, man. Like he was like not hunting down the kids, but he was like following them around the house, and you didn't know what he was gonna do. And then he cornered one of the youngest sons, and he said something that I can't remember, but it was something in reference to how you have to change yourself to adapt to deal with the persecution of who you are. If somebody starts to challenge your beliefs and your perspective. And what he did was he took a watch and smashed it on the ground and then gave it to the son. And I think he moved the dials on it for whatever reason. And it was almost as though like, yeah, you're supposed to be picking this up and maneuvering with it. Follow me kind of thing. I don't know where the wife was during that. I assume she was at work, but yeah, that was the last thing that they showed with that. Now I don't know. I'm very curious to see where this is gonna go now because I'm scared. That's all I can say. I'm scared. But yeah, that's it. That's
See, look how this review turned out. But unfortunately, just one of us actually seeing the right episode.
Look, I'm gonna tell y'all this. This wouldn't have worked if I didn't know this man. This man didn't know me. If we have not done countless discussions and interviews.
Oh man!
Because don't try this at home, ladies and gentlemen.
Do not.
Normally, stop it, watch the episode, and then reshoot the whole entire thing. But we were like, all right, I got what you got. What you're smelling. I'm gonna work with it. Let's do it. But yeah, that was the Lord. The Lord worked it out.
Hey, this is being professional and understanding. Hey, as they say, even if you don't know the lines, the show must go on.
That's exactly what that was.
Hey, and this is understanding this show enough and being enthralled in this show enough to just be able to pick it apart and understand, like, hey, in the end, I came in knowing more about the story. But that doesn't mean I can't pick your brain about the episode. That's going to always be the key part here and the element here.
Yeah.
Is that this show is so intriguing that you can sit back and possibly miss little things here and there and still pick up on the grander meaning of not only just the episode, but the series as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah. The immersive properties of just the way this storytelling is for this show is crazy. And the fact that it's based on a true story it's endearing, but it's more captivating to see how they're doing it, how it's being executed. And I think that's why we can, honestly, like each one of these episodes, we could talk for hours on it, but that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to give you everything it was.
Yeah.
And then we'll go back to it. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed our discussion on episode 5 of Under the Banner of Heaven. We will come back later on for episode 6.
I can't wait for episode 6.
And and we will talk about it. We'll talk to you guys later. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell button. Go and check out our other reviews like The Baby and The Man That Fell from Earth. Halo, I'm actually going to be doing a random review on some Netflix stuff. You don't want to miss some of those Netflix things. And we'll be back, people. Peace.
Falling off the top of